and they never hear you singing in your room? That's not happening?
I don't know. You'd have to ask my parents how they didn't realize because I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, and to that point, you better be careful because your parents are in the wings
I know,
right now.
I know.
So I get a little flashlight beeping at me from your dad. We're gonna put him on camera to call.
Oh gosh,
don't
do that. He would love it.
Hey guys, my name is Jeff McMahon, and I play the piano for people. I've played on some big records, played on some big stages, and I've played with some big stars. Big or small, they're all the same. Taking someone with a dream, playing their song, and trying to get them further up the ladder. So that's what we'll do here. Have a conversation, maybe shine a light, and play some music. And I'll be on piano. This is McMahon on keys. So Taylor Hughes.
Yes.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I was trying to put together, and you can tell me because if you remember exactly how we met. I'm assuming it's through Zach Stone.
I think so.
Okay.
I believe so. I know we met like when I first moved to town, and Ashlyn was kind of involved in things.
Okay.
And Zach, it probably was Zach. That's how I've met several people is through Zach. So.
Okay. Well, people on the podcast know of Zach because he cornered me for an interview a couple of weeks ago. But because what I remember, and I was trying to go back and look, is right at the beginning of everything kind of closing.
Mm-hmm.
I had my hands in a bunch of online streaming things.
Yeah.
Trying to help people kind of stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you reaching out to me, and we clearly already knew each other.
Right.
In some way, because you were calling me saying, I've got this live stream. I need to give somebody my passwords to work behind the curtain.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody that I think can do this.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is why I thought, okay, it must have been Zach because she doesn't know me to give me her passwords.
Right.
I don't
hey,
think.
stranger, here's the info to my personal account.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And it might have been maybe when we had the interview with the Backstage Pass.
Okay.
Maybe.
It could have been.
But I definitely think it was Zach who introduced us. And
Okay.
we were still doing all the live stream stuff because COVID started happening.
Right.
And I think you and I had talked about it, and you were like, oh, well, there's a cool way that we can do it this way where like I can help you, go live while you're already on, because I didn't know what I was doing.
Okay.
I had never dived into the live stream world, but being stuck at home, like kind of had to do it anyways. So I was like, all right, I'm going to trust this somewhat of a stranger, but he seems to be pretty trustworthy. He's friends with friends of mine. So hopefully he'll help me out.
Yeah.
No issues yet. So
No. I keep showing up for stuff, and you keep showing up for stuff.
So it's clearly something's working. So.
Yeah. Well, and showing up for stuff, that's one of the things I remember. I spend so much time working on other people's things that I sometimes drop the ball on my own things, because I remember having nothing to do with that. This was much more recently. I was involved in a writer's round at the listening room, and I remember this girl had her people and this guy had his people, and everybody, and I'm getting ready for everybody. And all of a sudden I saw you and your dad on the front row.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I have people.
Yes.
I didn't even know I had people.
You always have people. You always have me. So I'm somewhere in the crowd. So.
Well, I guess starting with some of that live streaming makes the most sense for me with this conversation, because I helped you with whatever those things were. I know that led to me connecting you to do some other live streaming for Truck Stock, which was a platform I was helping with. And just trying to, I can't quit, but I wasn't paycheck to paycheck. So I could either sit at home and watch TV or try to help her do this thing and him do that thing and try to keep it moving.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my impression, okay, well, first of all, had you just moved to town then?
So,
Because I didn't know that.
I moved here almost 6 years ago. So it was
Okay.
probably it was a few years before COVID had hit. So, Zach, like you mentioned before, was one of the first people I met when I moved here. So I've known him for a while, and like he's, I know I saw him with you a lot, and I was like, well, who's this Jeff guy?
Right,
and that's probably like how he got me in with working with you. And so I was here for a little while before the world shut down.
Well, so when we connected, I didn't know that you were recent to Nashville, but had you just dropped your first single?
So when COVID kind of started, that's actually when I released my first single, because who doesn't want to promote their first single from the comfort of their own home?
So
I like a challenge.
You dropped it after the shutdown or right before?
It was like right as soon as it happened. Like I believe the world kind of shut off in March, and I was like, okay, let's release it in April. So it was kind of around like the beginning of it.
Okay.
When we were all still trying to figure out what was going on.
Right. Well, and then I heard you talking somewhere else about how you've got fans in a lot of these other countries.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's kind of the byproduct of what you kind of did out of necessity then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. Like I said, I had never really dived into live streaming. It wasn't really my thing. I always felt super awkward, like getting on my phone and being like, hey, and when the world shut down, I was like, well, I guess I have to do this. I was kind of like, okay, time to get out of my own comfort zone and do this, because I wasn't going to stop doing music.
Right.
And I started doing the live streams on Facebook and started, doing takeovers with different blogs and different Instagram pages and radio stations and things like that. And one thing after another kind of led to reaching people in the UK and Australia and Ireland. And they ended up, loving what I was doing, and we stayed in touch. And now I have fans all around the world from the live streaming. So it's funny because, at the time it was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But, there were benefits from it. And it allowed me to not only build my fan base across the world, but learn how to do some live streaming things, how to work on the business side of it a little bit, and just trying to figure out, like, how do you still do your music without being able to tour?
Right. So you talked about getting out of your comfort zone because you don't normally, do those kinds of live streaming things.
Yeah.
Your comfort zone confuses me.
I confuse everyone.
Well, I say this because I've gotten to play with you.
Yeah.
I've known you in a lot of different contexts. And I know you tell this story, but I want to push the edges of this story a little bit, because you tell a story about when you were getting started. And go ahead and tell your version of it, and then I'll call BS on pieces of it, and then we'll go from there. The story about you being 18, your parents didn't know you sang, and you sang.
Yeah.
So explain how that worked.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah. So it's an interesting. Well, it's kind of interesting. I don't know. But I've always loved to sing. I always loved to perform ever since I was like itty bitty. We have some really funny home videos of me like putting on shows at the house, or like me in preschool, like pushing my way to the front to sing and like telling other kids to, shh, you're singing the wrong part kind of thing. But yet no one knew this is what I wanted to do. And I was just so heavily involved in athletics growing up as I got older,
right,
that I kind of had pushed music to the side because I really didn't know if it was something I could do. But I was also like really quiet and really shy unless like you knew me like pretty well.
But did you really push it to the side, or were you just so focused on sports that there wasn't enough time to really think about it?
Yeah, probably more that way.
Okay.
I mean, I still sang like in church choir and I was in school choir and I would sing for my friends and stuff
Right.
like that, but I never like did any shows or anything like that that weren't with like a big group of people. And then I had a career injury or a career ending injury that made me kind of take a step back and be like, okay, well, I was going to go to college on a volleyball scholarship, but that's scratched. So maybe we start doing music. Who knows? And like, I asked my dad if I could take guitar lessons, and he was like, "Oh, well, yeah, sure, why not?" And we went to my first lesson together. And come to find out, my guitar teacher was someone that he babysat way back in the day. So it was like this full circle moment, like we were supposed to meet.
Right.
And he's someone I still work with today. His name's Paulie Felice, and he's basically like family. But if it wasn't for him, I may have never stepped on a stage. You know, I had 1 or 2 guitar lessons with him, and he was like, and I was
because this is the guy that took you to
me to Nashville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You sing?" Because I was probably just like humming or something. I don't even really remember. And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of do." And he was like, "You should start songwriting." And like, because he knew this was kind of something I wanted to pursue. I just didn't really tell anybody. And he was like, "Well, the money's made in songwriting. So you should start songwriting and we'll work on that." And I was like, okay. So, you know, we were learning guitar, learning how to songwrite. And, you know, once he kind of heard me sing some more, he was like, "I think there's something here." And he told my parents that there was this Comcast down here called Nashville Spotlight that he wanted to take me to. And my parents were super confused because little quiet Taylor doesn't sing. There's no way she knows how to play guitar. And he was like, "No, your daughter, she can sing."
Now, is this something that's on a stage, like an open mic event, or is this something that was televised?
So this was like a small televised show.
Okay.
I think it was just kind of like a local thing to Tennessee.
Right.
But they did it like every like 4 months or so. So they would have like a Christmas show and like a summer show and stuff like that. And I'm not sure how he was involved with it, but I know he had several students that would do it. And he reached out to them and they invited me down. And I had never performed on my own before. I still didn't know how to play guitar. So I was singing to backing tracks. And I was scared out of my mind because I was like, oh my God, what if I mess this up? What if I forget the words? I've never been on a stage by myself. And it luckily for a first timer went pretty well.
Right.
And they loved me and they invited me to come back. And, you know, my parents are doing the thing like smiling and nodding like, "Oh, thank you." And we leave the venue and my parents are like, "Were you lip syncing?" And I was like, "Nope, this is me." And they were like, "Okay, maybe we have something here."
Did you know this? I didn't know this. Did you?
And that's basically how it was. Like, because I was just so quiet. And even my entire family, like extended family, they were like, "What are you talking about? Taylor doesn't talk." Like, I was just very quiet. I wasn't like the loud one at family events or anything like that. I just kind of sat back and observed. And I'm still kind of like that.
I get, well, okay. See, that's where it gets confusing because having done shows with you, I also have seen where things are very kind of calm and subdued in rehearsal. And then it's like the audience is there and the show starts and you get much more, you know, performance oriented.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, where did that come from? So when we get back to the start of it, I mean, I think of my own experience as a piano player. I never had the dream of being an artist. Mm-hmm. I did the choir stuff. I did the stage band. I did all those things. I didn't play in a real band till after, well, my last year of college. But everybody would have expected me to be doing music. They still knew I did it. Mm-hmm. Most all of my friends assumed I was doing it for a living before I ever thought about it. So how do you, as a kid, I mean, I don't know, how old are you when all this is happening? When you start the guitar lessons and do all this?
I think I was 17, 18 years old.
Okay. Yeah. So you're still living at home.
Yeah. Still in high school.
Okay. And they never hear you singing in your room? That's not happening?
Well, it's fun. I never really thought about it that way, but I mean, I always sang in the car and stuff, but
Yeah.
I guess I was just so passionate about volleyball when I was involved with it because it literally consumed my life.
Right.
I was playing all year round. There were no off days. I played for my high school. I played travel ball, and then in the summer, you were back at it training, getting ready for the next season. So I think the fact that I was just so focused on that people probably didn't even think anything of it when I was singing.
Right.
And I'm from Lexington, Kentucky. There's not like a huge music scene there. So
Right.
I don't think someone pursuing it as a full-time thing was really like, oh, this is what she's going to do. It was probably like, oh, this girl just likes to sing occasionally, like kind of thing. But I think in the back of my mind, I was always like, man, I want to be a superstar. I want to be selling out, stadiums and doing that thing, doing the country singer thing. And I think it was just one of those things that everything happens for a reason. And I think God kind of pushed me in that direction because, when I hurt my knee, I was like, my world's ending. What am I going to do? And it was more of just like a blessing in disguise. So I don't know. You'd have to ask my parents how they didn't realize because I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, and to that point, you better be careful because your parents are in the wings right now.
I know.
So I get a little flashlight beeping at me from your dad. We're gonna put him on camera to call.
Oh gosh, don't do that. He would love it.
Okay, so I'm hesitant to even ask this question because I know it's gonna hurt a little bit.
Oh no.
But people that have watched the podcast, they know that I started working. My biggest thing I did was when I started working with Tim McGraw in '93. Mm-hmm. I worked with Tim for like 18 years. I heard this. I don't want to necessarily have to repeat it. Did I hear that your first concert was Tim McGraw?
It was Tim McGraw. And Lady Antebellum was his opener.
Oh, yeah. I was there.
Lexington, Kentucky at Rep Arena. And my dad took me. And obviously, I love me some Tim McGraw. Who doesn't love Tim McGraw? Okay. So
it's not about Tim McGraw. It's about me starting to feel pains in my back and wondering if I got gray hairs showing up.
Well, it's funny to think that, like, I know Tim McGraw's piano player. Like, who would have thought that, like, the person I was singing in concert, like, I was somehow going to be, like, not that I'm, like, connected to Tim McGraw, but, like, you were on stage with him. And, like, you were probably the one that was like keeping it together like you do when you were playing with me and making sure everyone's doing what they need to do. And I'm like, just trust Jeff. Like he's the man. He knows what's going on.
You looking back on it, you can now realize that the real inspiration for you was coming from the piano player.
Absolutely.
Okay.
For sure.
Well, I heard that. I heard you say that somewhere or in some interview, and I was just, I don't need to know that. I don't need to know that.
You're like, I was there.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you mentioned playing with you, and you were just telling the story about how nerve-wracking it was playing by yourself when you did that first thing. Now, almost the entire time I've known you, you have played by yourself.
Yeah.
So, which I remember the first time I played by myself after I'd been out with Tim McGraw, doing arenas, not a problem. Coffee shop with 30 people, completely different experience.
Absolutely.
And it was a little nerve-wracking. Now, you kind of flipped that around and when we just did this full band thing for you, which was the first time you've done that in a while at the Freedom Jam.
Mm-hmm. It's been a little while. It was like, I say this, but I totally mean it. And people are probably like, Taylor, you play all the time, but it was literally like one of the funnest shows, if not the funnest show I've ever played, because there's just something so different about playing by yourself. And then with the full band and just the energy that you get, not only from the fans, but sharing that experience with your band and just having a really good time and knowing that, like, this is just one of those things, like, I get to do this for a living, and like I'm getting it to do it with other really talented people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those moments that I just really had to take a step back and just soak it in, because sometimes I get so lost in the moment that I'm like, oh, I blacked out. I don't even remember what was going on, kind of thing. So,
well, then what is it about playing by yourself or playing with the band that's more reassuring or makes you more anxious? Because a lot of times I would think when you're playing by yourself, when you're doing your own songs, yes, you've got to play it right, but you also know if you play it wrong, you can follow yourself.
Yeah.
Now, that would make me think that playing by yourself is more reassuring.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if you're not by yourself, if you've got other people playing, that provides something else. So how do those two scenarios contradict or complement each other?
So it's funny that you say that, because I don't think I'm a control freak, but like when you are playing by yourself, like I'm only depending on myself. So like I know what I'm going to do.
Right.
I can expect what my next thing is going to be because I am myself. Playing with a full band can be kind of scary just because I haven't done it in a while. So I am relying on everyone to know their parts and not, just mine. And I like to know that everyone knows what's going on, kind of thing, and everyone is prepared. So it is a little scary if someone like misses a beat or something like that. But you have to just kind of trust that they're going to know what they're doing because they're professionals. Mm-hmm. And what was cool with working with you and the band that I had for Freedom Jam was, we were doing rehearsals and I was like, these guys, they're seasoned. They know what they're doing. So that kind of brought me some relief because I knew that, like, if I did something wrong, like, we were going to be able to, like, recover from it, kind of thing. And just knowing you and me putting my trust in you and knowing that, like, from all the things that we've done in the past and that I know I can trust you, I was like, he's going to keep this together. It's going to be okay. I can, relinquish this need for control and to just enjoy it and have a good time because I'm not working with, rookies. Like, these people are seasoned. They know what they're doing. And I think sometimes when you're working with a new band, it can be kind of nerve-wracking, but once you realize, like, the quality that you're getting, it kind of takes some of that stress off. So, I mean, I won't lie. When we were getting ready to play and I was stepping on stage and they were introducing me, I don't want to say I was nervous, but like I was just like my adrenaline was like pumping, and I was like, it's time to go. Like, there's no messing up. You better put your thinking cap on and like don't forget the words. Make sure you're moving. Make sure you're interacting.
Right.
And everything else will just kind of fall into place.
Well, we can go back and check the video. As I remember the shoes you were wearing on that show, that would have made me nervous in and of itself.
Oh.
Because that would have been quite a fall.
Oh, yes.
If you had done that.
I tend to stay close to the ground, but for a show like that, I needed to come out like with a bang. So like, you got to wear the diamond shoes. I don't have them on today, but I'm all about the glitz and glam. You got to do what you got to do to make the people happy.
Well, I knew that, I knew when you had first called me about the show, it's like, hey, I've got a full band show. How do I put this together? And fortunately I was, because I'm real busy now on tour with Chris Cagle, which is great and growing, and we're doing more and more dates, but we happened to be off that one night. And that was where, you've already learned this, or you picked up on it, because the next show after that I wasn't able to be at, but maybe you can even speak to this. I knew that we were only going to have one rehearsal for that show. Yeah. Which is why, like, I know a lot of seasoned bass players, but the bass player that we pulled in on that show was the guy I work with Chris Cagle. Yeah. So I also knew that if something went awry, we're going to be able to, okay, you got me. We can eyeball each other and figure that out. Same with, the other guys I had played with in other scenarios. So as opposed to, boy, that guy's great. when he gets 4 rehearsals and he plays it perfectly. Somebody else maybe doesn't always play it the same way twice, but he's got great ears. And if something moves unplanned, he's going to fix it really quick.
Right. Yeah.
Which is more kind of the route we went with your stuff then.
Yeah.
Now, we did that first show, and I want to come back to the Freedom Jam just because I know the reason for the Freedom Jam was also important. But I'm curious, after doing that show, you did another show with some of those same guys?
Just one. Just one.
Just one.
Yeah.
Okay.
My guitarist was the same.
Okay. So he had a sense of what you were going to do because he and I had talked about it in advance. Yeah. Describe the second show as opposed to the one we did.
Oh, gosh. So I'm not going to lie. I got real spoiled on the first one because I was not sure what to expect when you were like, well, we can only do one rehearsal. And I was like, what? Because I am not someone like I over prepare for things. I overthink everything. I'm an hour early to everything. Like I like to be on top of things. So when you were like, well, we're going to rehearse once and then we'll go play the show, I was like having an anxiety attack. I was like, what do you mean we're only like, what? Because before I moved to Nashville, like I had a band at home and we rehearsed multiple times a week. But we were also learning, 3 to 4 hours worth of stuff. We weren't learning an hour.
Right. And this is in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yes, in Lexington. Okay. So like I'm used to like rehearsing constantly, right? And even for like my solo shows, I'm rehearsing at home and going over songs over and over and over again. But for the second show that I did, I had the same guitarist, which was nice that I knew someone that was going to be there. So there was some little bit of comfort there. But we were trying to learn 2.5 hours worth of music versus
I didn't realize you were doing so much music for that.
Yeah, and we only had one rehearsal, and it was the night before the show. So it was a little stressful. It wasn't as, I don't want to say clean, but smooth would probably be more of the word.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as smooth, but also like these guys were, we were all trying to learn each other the night before a almost 3-hour gig, not having played together before. And we still had an absolute blast. I got to be the headliner for this Houstonville festival, which was really cool. I've never been a headliner for a festival. And
oh, wow.
So it was really cool. It was really fun. I do like to have more than one rehearsal when you're learning like 3 hours worth of music.
Well, sure. And that's, I didn't realize it was 2.5 hours with music. I mean, that's a very different scenario than what we did because, first of all, for people that are trying to build things in Nashville, unless your project is a band project, you're not going to get the same guys every time ever because we all have to work different things to keep the plate spinning. Yeah. But when you've got a 45-minute set, we're learning the set. I mean, that's learning a show. And you're learning things in order. The guitar player knows when he's going to have to change guitars or retune the thing or tune down, the E string or whatever. As opposed to doing 2.5 hours, you're, probably paying more attention to the crowd, maybe taking a couple of requests, hey, do you know this? Hey, do you know that? What do we need to do now? I'm assuming it's not as regimented as doing a 45-minute set. Right. And just if you play everything straight through, one rehearsal with 2.5 hours worth of music, if you hit everything and go straight through, it's at least 2.5 hours and you haven't even set up yet. Exactly. So
it was just it was one of those things where I was like, Taylor, you're just going to have to go with the flow and hope that everything works out. Cause I think we rehearsed for like 6 or 7 hours the night before, and we didn't even hit every song. So there were songs the next night at our show that we had never rehearsed or run through. And I was like, well, I hope this goes well. Yeah. But it helps when the fans have been drinking. So everything just sounds good,
Well, and that's when you also, you come in as a creative and you want to do this obscure favorite
Yes.
Miranda Lambert song that you like. And, you know, everybody in the band says, well, everybody's played Kerosene before. Can we just do that one?
And you're like, no.
Well, or you say, yeah, Jeff said I already had to do Kerosene because it would be low-hanging fruit.
Right, yeah.
That way you don't have to learn everything from scratch.
Well, here's the thing. I like to make things much harder than they need to be. That's just how I live. You know, I'm like, how can we make this really difficult just to prove that we can do it?
Okay.
Not on purpose, though. Sometimes it just happens.
Okay.
But no, I mean, that totally makes sense. And especially with like, musicians that do this for a living, like they've played every song under the sun, so they're probably gonna know the song, even if it is like, because for me as an artist, something that my fans really love is that I'll take a song that's really well known, but I'll make it totally different and make it just like that Taylor Hughes sound, and people have always complimented me on that. And so sometimes we'll have rehearsals and I'm like, I know you know this song, but you don't know it because I'm about to change it. And people are like, oh no. But sometimes it's not as bad as like they think it's going to be. They're like, oh, Taylor, that's easy. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like we can make the switch. And there's some stuff that I'm like, hey, don't even worry about it. We're going to do it like the record. Like we're going to have a good time. But I do think it's important as an artist, because I'm not a cover artist. That's not what my goal is. Do I play cover songs? Absolutely. Got to make the fans happy, right? But along the way, I want people to know my stuff, and I want people to know my sound and my artistry. So I do take, you know, those well-known songs and put my twist on them, and, you know, hope that fans appreciate that I've, you know, kind of made it my own. And I think they do. And, you know, it's just all I can do is just what I think's best. And
well, okay. So let me ask you this. I've heard you say, correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard you reference Miranda.
Just a few times.
Miranda Lambert.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what other artists you would think of yourself, you know, as the, you know, if you like this girl, you might like me, kind of a thing. But we'll just answer that question. Who, you know, if you were to name 3 chick singers and you were like, you know what, if you like her, you might like my stuff. Miranda's one.
Miranda's one. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I will say, like, obviously I'm a female artist, but some of my most favorite songs I sing and most requested songs are by male artists, because my voice, like you've heard, is a lot deeper than most female artists. So like, I sometimes joke around that if Chris Stapleton and Susan Tedeschi had a baby and then they let Miranda Lambert raise it, that's kind of what my sound is, lyrically, vocally. But, you know, I love Ashley McBride. She's another artist that I just absolutely love. I love Lainey Wilson. So I'm definitely, you know, there's country, but there's a little bit of blues. There's a little bit of Southern rock.
Well, and that's why I was asking the question. I've never heard you reference Lainey Wilson, so that makes more sense to me. But because when at this level of the game, you're forced to kind of use other people as measuring sticks or comparisons when people don't know enough of your stuff, or you've only got, I think you've got 4 releases now. Mm-hmm. But I know when I think of a current female country artist, and I'm thinking, well, I mean, she did her songs, but then she did House of the Rising Sun and Simple Man, which nobody under 35 heard the first time. They've got to have gotten that some other way. So it makes me wonder, like, I know you have a fan base. I know you have people that follow you. And it reminds me, I wanted to ask you about this Raleigh Green thing. But do you know what a Taylor Hughes fan looks like?
Well, I think what's cool about my fan base is that there isn't just one particular fan. Because like you said, like when I'm playing shows, like my songs go from Miranda Lambert to Chris Stapleton to Leonard Skinner to Marshall Tucker. Sometimes I throw in Rihanna. Sometimes I throw in a Britney Spears song, but I put my own twist on it and make it more bluesy or more Southern rock. And my fan base is a pretty good range from like young teens to people in their probably 70s. I mean, because for me, like, I just want to play. So like I play at all kinds of venues that cater to different age groups. So it's hard to, pin down like what they look like.
Or
what,
and obviously when I say look, I'm just speaking to what are their characteristics, but that's where, if how do you reach for your audience if everybody's your audience, and that's, and obviously you want to reach out to a lot of people. Yeah. Carrie Underwood identified her initial audience by virtue of American Idol. Mm-hmm. Taylor Swift identified her core audience. Now, clearly her audience is much broader than it was when it started. Right. But there was a definition in the beginning. You kind of knew, angsty teenagers, teenage girls that were going through this or that in their life, and that's what she wrote about. Mm-hmm. And as you grow your fan base, it's curious for me to know how you target your fan base. Yeah. So I think like even with, when you're writing songs or you're just developing your sound, and I'm still learning, like I'm still growing. When I moved here 6 years ago, I do not sound the same. I do not write the same. I do not dress the same. You evolve over time. Sure. And I think a lot of my music is geared towards, kind of like Ashley McBryde and what Miranda Lambert write about, being strong and independent and, excuse my French, but being a badass or being an outlaw. And I think, just being true to who you are. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of women can relate to that. So I guess maybe you say like my fan base, I'm reaching to those strong women that need an outlet for music when they can't, describe how they're feeling or they can't say what they want to say, but a song can, but it's also that blue collar fan base too. Yeah. I cover a lot of the Southern rock male artist stuff. So I think, that blue collar world can kind of relate to that and the things that they're singing and the lyrics and just the sound. So we're still, I'm still trying to figure it out, but I can't complain that my fan base is just from one extreme to the next because, as, an artist, as crazy as this sounds, and some people might not understand it, but like our job is to try to make everyone love us. Now, that's not realistic. Right. But not everyone can be Taylor Swift where everyone loves her, right? Sure. But that's the goal, is to try to connect with people for music, whether it's a cover that I do or an original song. So well, and ideally you pull them towards your music as opposed to just trying to play everything they want. Yes. Yeah. I guess probably the easier question was, if you're the ideal Taylor Hughes fan, do you drink beer or bourbon? Oh, you probably drink bourbon. Okay, so we've nailed that down. So we know we have that target. Yeah. Yes. I want to ask you about Riley Green. Before we do that, we're going to share a little piece from Troy Castellano, who you know. Absolutely. Love him. About Instruments for Education, kind of shining a light on his program. He gathers up instruments, gets them to kids and to schools that can't get them otherwise. So we're going to share that. Love it. And then you're going to tell me about Riley Green. All right. So let's do it. Instruments for Education.
Hey, Troy Castellano here from Instruments for Education. We're at one of our first stops here today on a Friday. We're delivering some tambourines and some shakers for an elementary school classroom. We're at Liberty Elementary School. Hey guys, I'm Troy Castellano. We started Instruments for Education as a way to put instruments into the hands of kids. Sometimes we donate directly to students, sometimes to teachers, and sometimes to full classrooms in their schools. We're based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and we service the Middle Tennessee area. Since we started, we've reached over 100 schools and donated over 500 instruments. If you'd like to make a request for an instrument, or you have an instrument to donate, or would like to contribute financially, visit our website at instrumentsforeducation.org. Thanks for supporting us, and thanks for helping keep music alive.
So I wanted to ask you about this Riley Green thing, because you were just talking about, identifying your fan base. Who is your fan base? Who shows up for your shows? You've certainly built it in a lot of different ways. And they showed up at the Riley Green show where you opened for Riley Green.
They did, yeah. So, I think this was back in 2016, 2017. It's been a little while. Riley Green came to my hometown, and they the venue asked for a Lexington opener. So they reached out to me, and it was really cool. I got to meet him before the show, and he was super sweet, very down to earth. We told all of my friends, all the family, all the fans, and Riley was still coming up. So I know he had a ton of fans from his hunting world, because he's really big into, I think he had his own YouTube channel for his hunting stuff. Right. And I was just discovering him as well. So when they asked me to open, I was like, well, absolutely. Yeah, I want to do this. And what was really cool was that my fans packed the place, and it was really cool to show not only another artist, but the venue that I can bring in that fan base for you guys. I can do what needs to be done. And we had an absolute blast. And maybe, if Riley sees this and he recognizes me, he'll bring me out on tour with him now. Because now that he's this huge star,
Yeah.
I'm available, Riley. Call me up, man.
Well, at least in Kentucky.
Yes, yeah.
He certainly needs to do it there.
No, absolutely. I think we could probably do a sold out show there for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you had I forget who else you had opened for. Chase Rice.
Yes, that was
opened for Chase Rice.
That was a fun night. Yeah. Uh-oh. So this was this show.
Does this need to be on camera?
We can put this. Okay. I won't tell all the details. Okay. So this was in my hometown as well, the same venue. It was my first sold out show. So it was at Manchester Music Hall. I think it fits probably a little over 1,000 people. But they, called me and asked me to do it. And Sam Riggs, who's a huge Texas artist, was the other opener. So it was me, then Sam, and then Chase. And I was, being the opener, you don't think everyone's going to be there at the opening of the start of the show. And we walked on stage and the place was packed. And there was actually a huge crowd there for me too. And I was so excited because I was nervous. This was a big deal. People knew who Chase was. He was writing hit songs for Florida Georgia Line already. Right. He was doing his own thing. And I had 2 guitarists that were playing with me. So it was like a trio. Okay. And that was a night that I blacked out because I was just in the moment. And if I want to remember things, I have to go back and watch the video because I was just so nervous. But it went really well and we had a great time. And afterwards, we went out to where the tour buses were, and Sam's band and Chase's band were like, oh, it's time to party. And I was like, okay, I'll show you how Kentucky girls do it. And we just partied in the parking lot all night, and tequila shots were taken and bourbon shots were drank, and we had a really good time. It was really cool. And I didn't know Sam prior to it, but him and his team were unbelievably kind and so sweet. And this was before I knew I was going to be moving to Nashville. We had just kind of dabbled with the idea, and they were like, Taylor, you got to move to Texas. Because they were all based in Texas. And I was like, Texas? They were like, you're a Texas artist. They love you down there. Obviously, I moved here. Wasn't quite ready to move that far away, and I love it here in Nashville. But maybe we'll tour down there eventually. But, we'll save the crazy details for another time off camera. So.
Well, I would have to say that's a real country artist that blacks out before she starts drinking.
Oh yes, you know. Well, it was just one of those things where like you're in the moment and you're like, oh my God, don't mess up. And like you get off stage and you're like, did we just do that? Like, oh my God. Like,
well, now was it more nerve-wracking because you knew your audience had turned out, or was it more nerve-wracking because you knew you were opening for a full room and it wasn't just?
I think it was more of just like, it was a little bit of both, but just the fact that like people came to see the opener too. Like they weren't, you know, oh, we'll wait till Sam gets on. We'll wait till Chase. It was like, oh, they're ready to party all night long, and I got to get them ready for these acts, you know, because that's what you are as an opener.
Sure.
You're getting them pumped up. You're getting them ready. And it was also one of those things, like this was one of the biggest opportunities I had so far.
Right.
And I put a ton of pressure on myself. I can't help it. I'm a perfectionist. So it was like first impressions are everything. Like you got to get up there and kill it. And I think it went pretty well. Everyone seemed to love it. And what's funny is that, do you know Mary Cutter?
Oh, sure.
So apparently when I moved to town.
Mary Cutter, for the sake of the audience, is a
wonderful songwriter.
Songwriter and artist, you know, here in town. Currently much more the songwriter than the artist, just because I want to say she's just been a machine for the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing, you know, she got 1 million streams on things she had written, and then I think she's crossed 100 million.
Yeah, she's been killing it, but she's from Kentucky too.
Okay.
And when I first moved to Nashville, I was playing her writers round, and she was like, "I know you," and I was like, "You know me?" She was like, "I saw you open for Chase Rice. I was at that concert."
Oh, wow.
So it was really cool because she's not even from Lexington. She just happened to be at that show. And so it was really neat to be like, someone in the crowd knew me that like wasn't just a friend or something like that. And like I had made an impression on her. So, you know, her and I still stay in touch and we play shows occasionally together. And but it's just funny that, you know, these opportunities that you have, you never know what they'll lead to. Or the people that you'll meet.
Well, and that's an opportunity to share the lesson with everybody that's paying attention. You know, you can talk about the small town thing, whether Nashville's a small town or not. It's clearly not. But do I know Mary Cutter? Yes, I know Mary Cutter. I'm playing with Chris Cagle now. And Chris did an opening spot when I was with Tim McGraw 18 years ago, 20 years ago. It's the only time we ever crossed paths.
Yeah.
But when he unretired and was looking for a keyboard player, have we ever met? Yes, we had. Was there an impression made? Yes, there was. So the idea that you can let your guard down because it won't matter, just not true.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think people are brought into your life for a reason, whether it's for a moment or a season or for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things that like you always just have to give your best and always be nice, you know, be kind. It's like that Tim McGraw song, be humble and kind. But it's so true though, because like you don't know who you could be talking to, like, or who you're interacting with, or how like your paths might cross again. And you want to leave a good impression on somebody, and you don't want them to come back around and be like, oh, that girl was not nice. Like you want to remember that girl was taking shots with me at the party and we were having a good time. Not I'm just kidding. But like, you know, you want to leave that good impression and be kind to everybody and respectful, and you know, you could be working with them. You just never know.
Sure. Well, okay, so you want to be nice to everybody.
Yes.
You want to be kind to everybody.
Yes.
I did not realize how this quote pertained to Johnny Cash. But where is being kind to everybody
I already know where you're going.
in between Jesus and jail?
Well, you know, I had a life prior to the music scene.
Okay. So Jesus in Jail is your current single.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, I knew that. I've heard it. We've talked about it. I've played it.
Mm-hmm.
did not know until I was preparing for this that was a Johnny Cash reference.
Yes.
I understand how it could be, but I don't know specifically what it is. And I assume that you wrote that knowing that.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
what is the story behind that?
So I wrote this song with my really good friend Crystal King. We wrote it back in 2019, I think. So this was well before like COVID and stuff happened. I came across this saying, which some of you might know. I live like Johnny Cash, somewhere between Jesus and jail. And I was like, there's a song there. There is a song. So I brought the idea to her, and of course, knowing if you know Crystal, she was all about it. And we wrote it really quickly, actually. And we took different things about I've never been arrested. Don't get the wrong idea. I've pushed some buttons back in college, but you know, what can you do? But we took like different just inspirations from things that happened in my life. Or there's a line about wearing carbon black mascara. I wear carbon black mascara. You know, so there's little pieces of me in the song, but there's also just like things that maybe an outlaw woman or rebel might do, or anything like that. And with the style of music I sing and just where I get inspiration from, like I mentioned earlier, I cover a ton of male artist songs. It's just what I vibe with. It's what I think showcases my voice the best. And like I've always been a Johnny Cash fan, and I even have a Gibson that I named Cash after Johnny Cash. So it just kind of made sense to write this song, and it's definitely got more of a Southern rock kind of country feel to it. But in the end, when we were writing it, I really wanted it to be kind of like an anthem for outlaw women out there, or just, you know, the women who aren't prim and proper. And, you know, the music industry in general is kind of dominated by men, which is, it is what it is. But a lot of those men have inspired my music. And I thought it was time that, you know, us women had our own anthem to be like, you know, we ride the line. We're not bad. We're not good. We're just, we're somewhere in there. And, you know, we might commit a sin or two, but Jesus is he's going to save us. Yeah. He's going to pay our bail. So
I noticed she didn't say, I never should have gone to jail. She said, I've never been to jail, which is a very different statement.
Listen, we don't need to air any dirty laundry on here.
Well, I love the fact that song's out. You know, I was thinking about this morning. Is there a story behind the cop car in the artwork?
So the cop car we used for the single is actually in Leaper's Fork.
Okay.
So it just sits on the side of the road as you enter the city. And it's just there for tourists to use. But I believe it was used in the oh gosh, there's a TV show. Dukes of Hazzard, I think it might have been what it was used for.
Okay, maybe, I don't know.
I think that's what it was, because they had the orange car that used to be they used to keep the
General
orange.
Lee.
Yeah, that car used to be there too, but they moved it somewhere. And I was like, we can use this car for the photo shoot, right? See, so you just make whatever you have accessible to you work.
Yeah, no. It's cool. I was looking at the artwork again yesterday, and I realized that I had never asked you where that car came from.
Yeah,
so
just down the street.
Yeah. Separate of Jesus in jail, one of the things that we do here, as you well know, is take one of your songs. Sometimes it's not something that's been recorded, or it's something that's coming later, and redo it as a piano vocal.
Yeah. Which
we did with one of yours. So I know you've seen that, but we're going to show that and give everybody a different flavor of Taylor Hughes.
Yes. A more vulnerable, sweet side.
Yeah, so she says.
Yes.
And then you can tell us why we did that song.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's High on Something by Taylor Hughes.
Like a rush of blood to your head with the first hit of nicotine. Like an 88 Chevy burning up a tank of gasoline. Like a quick fix from a fifth when you tip it on back. Type of buzz that comes and goes, it don't ever last. But with you, I come on down. No crash and burn, ain't looking for an easy way out. And it ain't a drug, it ain't a drug. Whatever it is, it's more than enough. And I don't know much, but I know one thing. Got me high on something. Like a worn in leather on an old pair of boots. Like the lazy stretch of a long June afternoon. Like a 10-year bottle of bourbon. Takes time, but damn, it's worth it. So to build the fire, that's what keeps it burning. 'Cause with you, I come on down. No crash and burn, ain't looking for an easy way out. And it ain't a drug, it ain't a drug. Whatever it is, it's more than enough. And I don't know much, but I know one thing. Got me high on something. You got me high on something. Ooh. 'Cause with you, I come on down. No crash and burn, ain't looking for an easy way out. And it ain't a drug, it ain't a drug. Whatever it is, it's more than enough. And I don't know much, no, I don't know much, but I know one thing. You got me high on something. You got me high on something. Ooh, you got me high on something.
Okay, Taylor. So why did we do High on Something?
Yeah, so that was my third single that I released, and it's done really well, which is pretty exciting. It's played all over the world. It charted in the top 100 down in Texas on their internet radio charts, which was really cool. I actually had some friends in the radio business call me, and they were like, "Taylor, your song's charting," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" I didn't send it.
Oh wow!
So that was really cool, but. What was nice about releasing this song was it was very different from the first two releases I did, Good Taste and Praying to the Whiskey, because it was something that fans hadn't really seen from me yet.
Okay.
I don't typically do love songs. You know, I'm more of the outlaw, kind of edgy, sassy stuff. So when I wrote this song, I really wanted it to make sure it was not cheesy, because I can't stand a cheesy love song. But I wanted it to have like that Taylor Hughes stamp on it still. Yeah. And when we wrote it, you know, it just felt right. And it's one that a lot of fans have connected with, because like Praying to the Whiskey, that's more of a bourbon fan, like that. The bourbon drinkers connect to that, the whiskey drinkers. But high on something, like everyone knows what love is, whether they've been in love or they're currently in love, or maybe they're trying to forget about it. You know, everyone can kind of relate to it, it's just done really well, and it tends to be a fan favorite. So, and it was one that I thought, you know, the piano and the vocal would cater to it pretty well. So it was fun to do that one, and it shows a more vulnerable side to me. It shows that I'm not always just, you know, the outlaw. I do love occasionally, you know.
Well, that's okay. And it's all the more reason to shine a light on that song again. I mean, I've told, you know, so many people that I've worked with that get hesitant to look back at something they released last year or 6 months ago. Or, it's like, look, if you want to be the next Carrie Underwood, she's got 10 million people on her Facebook page. You've got 1 million. That's great. 9 million people haven't heard High on Something yet.
Right.
So it was fun to push that back out there.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me do that.
Absolutely.
This past year, for all the things that I've, you know, played around with in my musical career, for the first time I had something that I wrote get recorded. Maddie True, who you know, recorded a song that I co-wrote with her. Mm-hmm. You've had a number of people write songs that you've written. Tell me a story about one of those. Is that because I'm assuming you have aspired to do that. You presented those songs to them.
Yeah.
I didn't really see it coming. It just kind of happened and I kind of rolled with it.
Yeah.
But what is that? How does that make you feel, or what do you get out of having somebody else record one of your songs that's different from you recording it yourself?
Yeah. So when I first started doing music, like I just wanted to be the artist. I wanted to be the one up on stage singing songs. I had no interest in writing music. But now, like, I've started, you know, to dive into that, and I love writing my own stuff, and I still want to be the artist. But it's really cool when you write something that connects with someone else. So, like, I've written for friends of mine that have cut songs, but I've also, you know, had the opportunity to write songs for people I've never met. But there was something in that song that they connected with, that they were like, I want my fan base to hear this.
Right.
Believe it was maybe beginning COVID or mid COVID. I wrote a Christmas song with Meg Riley, Randy Barnett, and Corey Lee Barker, who I'm sure you know some of them. We wrote a song called Christmas in Philly, and they pitched it to Serena Soul, who's, I believe she's still independent, but she's a blues artist.
Okay.
And she just really loved it, and she ended up cutting it, which was really cool. I've still never met her, but that's what's neat, is that it wasn't like, oh, you're a friend of mine, like, I'm going to do you a favor, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Right. She didn't know me, you know, at all, and probably still has no idea who I am, you know, but she connected with the song that we wrote, and enough to, you know, write it and release it on, I believe she did like a Christmas EP, right. Which was really cool. But I've also had the opportunity to write for some girlfriends of mine. Crystal King, my co-writer, her and I write a ton of stuff together. We just work really well together, but she just released a song called Red Wine and White Lies that I was the co-writer on, and I know she's really excited about this project she has coming, and I've written a few of the songs that are on it, and have another girlfriend, Hannah Wright, who's a fantastic artist. She's more of the gypsy outlaw, and she's toured all over the place, and she released a song that we wrote called Pinkies Down, Bottoms Up on her debut album, which was really neat, because I had no idea she was gonna, you know, put it on the album and release it. So when she told me, I was like, absolutely, I want you to do that, please. Like, so it's really cool to know that, you know, it doesn't have to be something that I'm releasing. Right. Like, someone else wants to tell that story,
sure,
whether they wrote it with me or not. So it's really rewarding to, you know, be able to reach other fan bases that way.
Well, and I would think And I don't know because I haven't done it, but I would think it's even cooler when there's no chance of them doing it as a favor.
Yeah.
They're not doing it because they know you or they owe you or they wrote it with you.
Yeah.
It's just
they just like
pure. So
yeah, exactly. And this business is about knowing who you know and who knows you, but when they don't know you and they still believe in what you're doing, that's very much like it lets you know that you're doing something right.
Sure.
So.
I had said that I wanted to ask you about this, so I want to ask you this, and then you said off camera that you had a question for me. We were talking about the Freedom Jam earlier, and yes, it was full band. Got to open for Morgan Myles, which was killer. I had never seen her perform live.
She's so good.
That was a treat.
Yes. She's so sweet too. Like she's just very down to earth.
Yeah. Yeah. She was great. But I know that you had mentioned that it was also cool to be a part of Freedom Jam specifically.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you've got a little better insight into what that was about. So why was that significant for you?
Yeah, so Freedom Jam, they host a few shows every year, and they raise money for veterans and first responders. So it was really cool when they reached out to me asking if I wanted to be a part of it. I have several family members that have served in the military, Army, Navy, Coast Guard, you name it. One of my family members has probably done it, but it's just something that's always been really important to me. I'm a huge advocate for our military families and veterans and just all that they do. And I don't think they get enough recognition. So it was really neat and just an honor to be just a small part of this show that could raise money, to help others like that out. And I still, I'm still trying to get more involved as I can. I've worked with Folds of Honor on a few things. We did a bourbon ball 2 years ago where we raised money for Folds of Honor. And if you guys aren't familiar with that, they give scholarships to military families. So a lot of the times it'll be like a member that has passed away, they'll give like their children like a scholarship for school or help pay for it and stuff like that. So any way to help the military out, I'm all about it. So it was really cool to be a part of it. And I'm always, willing to help wherever I can.
Yeah. No, it's T-shirt guns and water sprayers at festivals are fun, but it's nice to connect to something a little bit.
Something bigger than yourself, something more important. So you guys go check out Freedom Jam if you haven't heard of them. They're just really good, down to earth people. So,
well, that was fun, and thanks for pulling me in on the show.
Oh, absolutely! I'm sure you saw a different side of me, and you were like, "What did I get myself into?"
I did, but it was all good. It was all good.
I was ready to have some fun.
Yeah, no, it was all fine. It was all fine. What were you thinking? You said you had something.
Yeah, so with you being a seasoned, pianist and working with the big stars, I was wondering, like, how is it different working with someone like Tim McGraw to working with independent artists like me and, and Zach and Maddie, and just what did you learn from working with Tim that like you use to help us, to guide us, and trying to make it in this crazy business?
Well, ultimately, there's not a difference. Now, I mean, clearly there's a difference.
Right.
Us playing a writer's round here in Turk's Lounge from selling out Madison Square Garden with McGraw, or, a big festival that closes down the city with Chris Cagle. But what we did with High on Something, taking your song, rehearsing it, preparing it, trying to lay it out in a way that reaches somebody, connects what you're trying to say to those people that are trying to understand it. musically, there's no difference. That's what I did with Live Like You Were Dying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was fortunate to play on that record.
Yeah.
That's what we did. You know, with Chris Cagle, every night we play Beautiful Day. It's got this complicated piano intro. We do that. His fans immediately connect to it. They're singing along. That's what we're doing there. And honestly, I worked really hard to hang on to that when I was out there, because it's easy to want to buy into the fact that all these people are screaming. They're screaming because they think I'm awesome. And no, they're not. They're screaming. I mean, some of them are screaming because they like the music. Some of them are screaming because they're drunk.
Right.
Some of them are screaming because they blacked out, and then later they'll be drunk.
You're never gonna let me live that one down, are you?
But no, I mean, or it's their favorite song, or Tim just took his jacket off, or they're with their girlfriend that they're really excited about being out. So there can be lots of things that are going on there, but musically, the part that I have always tried to hang on to is just, what are we doing? Taking your song, trying to make it better, trying to connect with the people that are listening to it. And that's the part that makes me want to do this. That's the part that, now, practically, you know, in the context of what could somebody do that might help them follow suit? Remember that if you take a photograph with somebody, it may show up on their Instagram. And whatever you say to them might affect the caption that they put. You know, just the same as you were talking about with the people that you write with. If you're mean to somebody or rude to somebody, or if they think you are,
mm-hmm.
that impression will remain.
Yeah.
So we all will go up to those big venues, and we'll all come back down to those smaller venues, and people are going to remember how you treat them,
right.
how you do all that. So fortunately, I did most of that pretty well. You know, when I was out with McGraw, I mean, we just played. Jonathan, where did we just play our last show? Connecticut. We just played in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And these two ladies showed up, and I was looking at them, and they said, "We're from the Four Sisters." And the Four Sisters used to follow Tim McGraw everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to shows, and I took pictures with the Four Sisters. They knew me. And they had found out I was playing with Cagle. I haven't been out with Tim in 12 years.
Yeah.
12 years later, they show up in Connecticut to see Chris Cagle to say hello.
Yeah. That's incredible. I love
Hopefully that will continue to happen. And when I'm in Connecticut playing with Taylor Hughes, they're going to show up again.
Absolutely.
So it's at the end of the day, we're sharing our music with people and appreciative that they care.
Yeah.
And if we can hang on to that and care back, that's a win.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
I love that.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me on.
You are very welcome. I know you've got all my numbers, so you know how to get a hold of me if you need me.
Yes.
But tell them how to find you and all of your stuff, including what's coming.
Yeah, so you guys can find me on my website, taylorhughesmusic.com. You can find all my socials on there. Make sure to subscribe so you get the fun monthly newsletter that comes out the first of every month. But you guys can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Taylor Hughes Music. I'm on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you guys find music. It's just Taylor Hughes. I'm on Twitter. I'm on TikTok. I'm on... Well, I'm sorry, not Twitter. Now it's X, whatever that is. So whatever you want to call it, you can find me. But I always say, reach out. I always answer my fans as long as you're not creepy. So
No creepy.
no creepy.
Okay.
So, well, if it's a funny creepy, then maybe we will, but probably not. So.
I'll try to behave next time. I apologize
you
for
know.
that.
I'll let it slide.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Guys, that is it for our interview with Taylor Hughes. Taylor, thanks for swinging by. I appreciate you being one of my people, and I even more appreciate that I am one of yours. So thank you for that. Guys, follow Taylor Hughes on socials so you are notified when she has something new coming, and certainly stream her current single, Jesus and Jail. I want to start off our thank yous with Turk McNamara. Turk always leaves the door open for us at Turk's Lounge, makes us feel at home. Thank you for creating a space that is Nashville, how it used to be, and for sharing that with the McMahon on Keys podcast. Thanks to Tommy Leland for putting the music together for us, Jonathan Warren for helping to capture the interview, and Randy Allen for putting together the video for High on Something. If you are enjoying what you're hearing, certainly let us know. You can email us at jeff@mcmahononkeys.com. And, if you wanted to swing by and leave a review for us, we would appreciate that as well. Thanks so much. Until next time, this is McMahon on Keys.